Have you ever heard of a society where boys were trained to be soldiers from the age of 7? A place where every citizen, man or woman, lived and breathed for the glory of their state. This wasn't a dystopian novel. This was ancient Sparta. Today, we're journeying back in time to uncover the truth behind the legendary warriors who never surrendered. Get ready, because the story of the Spartans is more intense and fascinating than any movie. So, what made the Spartans so unique? It all began with a legendary lawgiver named Lycurgus. Around the 7th century BC, he supposedly reformed Spartan society from top to bottom. His goal? To create a state of perfect soldiers, unburdened by luxury and dedicated solely to military excellence. This radical transformation was called the Great Retro, and it laid the foundation for everything Sparta would become. The entire system was designed to prioritize the collective over the individual. From birth, a Spartan's life belonged not to themselves, but to the state. The most famous, or perhaps infamous, part of this system was the agoge. This was the rigorous state-sponsored education and training program that all male Spartan citizens had to endure. At the tender age of 7, boys were taken from their families and placed into communal barracks. Life here was brutal. They were given minimal food, forcing them to learn how to forage, steal, and be resourceful to survive. Getting caught meant a severe flogging, not for stealing, but for being clumsy enough to get caught. They were trained barefoot and given only one cloak to wear, regardless of the season, to toughen them against the elements. The training was relentless. Wrestling, boxing, running, and weapons practice were daily routines. But it wasn't just about physical strength. The agoge was designed to instill discipline, obedience, and an unbreakable sense of brotherhood. They learned to endure pain without complaint and to follow orders without question. This wasn't just school, it was the forging of a human weapon. By the time a Spartan youth reached his 20s, he was a finely tuned instrument of war. He would then join a syestia, a common mess hall where he would dine with 15 of his comrades for the rest of his life. This further strengthened the bonds between soldiers, creating a unit that fought as one. They weren't just a team, they were brothers bound by years of shared hardship and a common purpose. This camaraderie was the secret weapon of the Spartan phalanx. Now, let's talk about the Spartan phalanx. Imagine a wall of bronze and muscle, bristling with spears. That was the sight that greeted Sparta's enemies. The Spartans perfected this military formation, where soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, their large round shields or spades overlapping to create an almost impenetrable barrier. Each man protected the soldier to his left, making the phalanx a symbol of collective security. Armed with a long spear, the dory, and a short sword, the Xiphos, a Spartan hoplite, was the most feared soldier of his time. Their discipline was legendary. They could advance in perfect silence, a terrifying and unnerving sight on the battlefield, only to erupt into a battle cry at the last moment. Of course, we can't discuss Sparta without mentioning the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC. This is the event that cemented their legend. Faced with an enormous invading Persian army, King Leonidas led a small force of 300 Spartans, along with a few thousand other Greeks, to defend a narrow coastal pass. For 3 days, this tiny force held back hundreds of thousands of Persians. They knew it was a suicide mission, but their duty was to delay the enemy and inspire the rest of Greece. Their stand at the hot gates became an enduring symbol of courage against impossible odds, epitomized by the phrase Molon Labe, "Come and get them." Leonidas' defiant response when the Persians demanded they lay down their arms. But what about the other half of Spartan society? Spartan women were unlike any others in the ancient Greek world. While Athenian women were confined to the home, Spartan women were educated, outspoken, and physically fit. Why? Because the state needed them to be strong mothers who would produce strong Spartan sons. They participated in athletic competitions, managed the estates while the men were at war, and were famously direct. A Spartan mother, handing her son his shield before he left for battle, would say, "with this or on this," meaning he should return either victorious with his shield or dead and carried upon it. Surrender and cowardice were the ultimate disgraces. However, the Spartan system had a dark side. This warrior society was built on the backs of a vast enslaved population known as the Helots. The Helots outnumbered the Spartan citizens by a huge margin, perhaps 7-1. They worked the land, allowing the Spartans to focus solely on warfare, but this created a constant state of fear. The Spartans lived in perpetual dread of a Helot uprising, and they used brutal methods to keep them suppressed, including a secret police force called the Cryptia, which would terrorize and even murder Helots to maintain control. Sparta's strength was inextricably linked to this cruel system of oppression. So, what happened to these seemingly invincible warriors? Sparta's rigidity was both its greatest strength and its ultimate weakness. Their obsession with military purity meant their citizen population was always small and difficult to replenish. After a devastating defeat at the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC, where the Thebans shattered their phalanx, Sparta's power began to wane. They lost a significant number of citizens in that single battle, a blow from which they could never fully recover. Their reluctance to change and adapt in a shifting world led to their gradual decline. They were eventually absorbed by the rising power of Rome, becoming more of a historical tourist attraction than a military force. The story of Sparta is a powerful lesson in extremes. It shows us the incredible heights that discipline and collective will can achieve, but also the terrible price of that dedication. They were warriors who created a legend that has echoed through millennia, inspiring countless tales of bravery and sacrifice. But they were also a society built on a foundation of brutal suppression and an inability to evolve. The Spartans truly were warriors who never surrendered, until the world simply moved on without them. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the heart of ancient Sparta. What part of their story fascinates you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious.